Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Archant Towers here this Friday evening. I'm Michael Bailey. I'm with Paddy Davitt. Paddy, you well?
Good, mate. Good. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. Norwich City hosting Bolton on Saturday. It's been a busy week, hasn't it, actually, thinking about it?
Is it only a week?
Yeah, well, three games in the space of whatever is normally drains us a little bit. But it is Bolton on Saturday. We've had Colney this lunchtime to catch up with Daniel Farke and Christoph Zimmermann, as it was today, as well as some young competition winners. We might touch on that later. But we should start off with the team news. I think that's always the best place to kick off with. And generally, Paddy, so far they've been fairly unscathed. But I did think it was interesting. Daniel Farke made the point they are not going to be fresh tomorrow.
Nah. Three games in 6 days. I don't think it's going to be a performance full of vitality, that is for sure. But certainly they won't lack for confidence or self-belief given the manner of the 2 games. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Time will tell. But I think that counteracts it a little bit. You know, they're bouncing into Bolton rather than limping in if they hadn't got back on level terms at Ipswich or Wolves for that matter. So I think that counts for a lot because you can imagine the mood is very bubbly there in that change room at the minute. But within that there are 1 or 2 injury concerns. So mainly Tim Closer. So we'll see how that one pans out between now and kick-off. But as Daniel himself said, that's factual, but it's not going to be an excuse. So I'd like the players to take that message on board.
Yeah, indeed. The interesting one with Tim Closer, because I thought at the start Daniel Farke made out, there's no chance, he's really struggling with his tight hamstrings, and kind of warmed up a bit to the fact that it's not that bad, and if it was a cup final they'd probably start with him, so can't be that bad, can it, really?
Or he thought he'd probably gone a bit too strong for the for the listening Bolton end, maybe, and he was trying to backtrack. So no, I think it sounded to me as if they're not going to risk him. With the greatest of respect, Bolton at home, there's some bigger games ahead. You would feel where you're going to need a Tim Closer. I don't think a Bolton who will probably sling 10 behind the ball and ask Norwich to try and break them down is naturally probably going to be a game where you're going to miss Tim Closer. So interesting who he goes with, and also the formation he goes with. Whether he decides to revert to a 4, put that to him. Said they could go either route. Personally, for me, I'd like to see Sean Raggett. Why not get him in and let's see what he's about. And as I say, that's a game where I don't think he's going to be under the most severe pressure because Bolton aren't going to have too much of the ball in an attacking sense. You would think. So yeah, nice one to introduce him into. Really, he's got both Hanley and Zimmermann alongside him in the 3. So I think there's more daunting challenges that you could introduce him, and we won't know until we see him, will we? So yeah, that clearly you'd rather have Closer fit, but if there is a silver lining, it could be a chance for Raggett.
He was quite upfront, wasn't he, in terms of the fact that he was contemplating changing the formation, which would be quite a big deal because that back 3 has looked reasonably solid. But I guess you then caveat with the fact that is that just because of the 3 that they've been playing and the fact that they have combined so well, how difficult would it be with Raggett? But I mean, you would rather Sean Raggett came in and they...
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, he did make the point that it's not just the 3 defenders who we're talking about, it's how that system is now bedded in with Tete, with Leitner, with Vrancic, with Jamal Lewis and Harrison Reed, Angus Gunn behind them. Changing the system isn't just going to have a negative impact potentially on the back line, it's the whole balance of the team. And one defeat in 10-11 league games, if you have to make a change, for me, just try and limit it to a change in personnel rather than a personnel change and a system change as well. Because I think they're going to need to be very well drilled to break down. Probably if they don't score early, then it's going to be a very long afternoon. So I wouldn't want any other factors colouring the job at hand. And for me, you keep the system as it is. It's proved itself, and change the personnel to fit the system, not the other way around.
Everyone else seems to be fit enough to be involved. Ivo Pinto is the one who won't start, but he's fit enough for 30 odd minutes, and he'll bring his big personality into the team as he did at Wolves. I've already had a couple of people ask me, Pat, about whether Norwich need 2 holding midfielders at a game like this, and actually they would quite welcome a change in formation. And I guess you imagine if Maurice Leitner did start, say, alongside Tete, who may well get brought back in, he's not really going to play as a separate holding midfielder anyway. But that dynamic of balance between attacking and defending, and how Norwich need to try and work these spaces and create more goals than they've tended to at home. It's going to be the big question to answer tomorrow, really, isn't it?
Oh, indeed, yeah. I'm just trying to think there. Was it Middlesbrough where Leitner came on and showed that cameo? And what happened in that game was you still had Maddison on the pitch, you still had a striker and lads wide areas, but I think Tete basically then just uncoupled himself from playing in a two, as it were, side by side, and basically was a lot deeper than Leitner. And Leitner was then had the freedom to pick the ball up and basically push forward. I can see that tomorrow. So, yeah, if you want to nominally say it's going to be 3-4-2-1 at the start, then fine. But if it is as we expect it to be, Bolton will retreat and camp on the edge of their own box, then you basically just sit Tetty in front of your back three and let Leitner go forward. I don't see it in that sense that they're incapable of splitting, as it were, as a two, if they play it in a 3-4-2-1 formation or 3-4-1-2. So yeah, no, for me, if Leitner is fit, because there is a slight issue about the fatigue factor with him, according to Daniel today. Sounds like he's just spent about 48 hours in the ice bath non-stop. So if he is available, then I think he's a clever enough player that he would exploit the spaces and go where he needs to go to try and break down a very resolute team. And we saw that, albeit the way the game was opening up there, Middlesbrough had a man sent off, pushing for it to try and get back in, and there was spaces for him to exploit. That isn't going to be the case, certainly while it remains 0-0. So do you bring in the likes of Hernandez then? Do you restore Josh Murphy? I think Oliveira will come back in. That's a natural change. Shrubeni will probably drop out. But yeah, he's got a few debates or a few questions that he has to resolve between now and kick-off, because if we get another Carrow Road affair where it's very lateral and it's pass, and they're looking like it's going to take something special from outside the box like Tribal against Middlesbrough, then that's going to be another frustrating afternoon, I think. Maurice
Leitner has recreated. That's good news. He's recreated, so hopefully he will be in a position. Daniel did use the word recover slightly later on, so he has got both. He's also, I've
noticed today, he's gone out of the metric from his European upbringing, obviously, and he's now started talking in yards. Apparently Nelson's goal was 35 yards out.
I like that.
So that's the English influence for you.
There was a suggestion, so I don't know what you're about to say, Pat, but there was a suggestion, I can't remember which game it was, I think it was the Derby game against Derby County, where Daniel was doing his press, and he kept saying how the home fans at Derby were moaning, but it sounded more like mooning to match hilarity. But we love Daniel. It's all good fun. Get your questions and comments in, please, and we'll go through a few as we find time for them. Lorne Haggis Smybert, I don't know if you touched on this, Pad, but do you think Onel Hernandez will start on one wing, Matt Jarvis on the other? Well, Matt Jarvis isn't gonna start, Lorne, but he is possibly going to get an under-23 appearance.
Yeah, decision to be made Sunday night. I think they've basically got a game on Monday, a rearranged game at Colney Premier League Cup, I think, off the top of my head, Bury. And the way Farker was talking, it's likely he'll get 30 minutes or so in that game, and that'll be the start of building him up potentially to be in and around the first team. But it still sounds, from what Farker was talking about today, we'd be at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks away from. And that's if there's a complete free run now between. I mean, he's already making the point that they've just had to throttle him back a little bit, because it's obviously the first time probably in 2 years now that he's been able to train at the intensity he needs to be considered for the first team. So, I wouldn't pencil in Matt Jarvis for any potential sort of action anytime soon. But Hernandez is an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, as I say, given pace apparently is his biggest strength, and you kind of see that more in a playing an opponent who are going to allow him to have space to go in behind. I don't think Bolton are going to present that type of opportunity, certainly, while it remains 0-0 or Bolton, heaven forbid, get their noses in front. So if there's not a massive amount of space for him to exploit, I don't see Hernandez being, from the outset, an option. For me, it'll be Oliveira And I think the way he was eulogising about Marley Watkins' his display midweek, I think Marley will get another chance.
It's interesting you say that. I was just going to touch. Chris Ellis says Hernandez has to start. The guy is like a whippet. I mean, he's the one of the signings other than Marcus Edwards who we haven't really seen and been able to judge him properly yet. But Dean Bowman says 13 points out of the next 15 and 3 to 6 points off the playoffs, says Dean. Watkins needs to start next game just behind Nelson. And he did. I mean, listening to it again, Daniel obviously feels that he had a dig at Marley a few weeks ago. He's responded well, and now he needs a bit of praise. I mean, he did work hard on Wednesday. I still felt the touch and technicality perhaps wasn't there, but Daniel, what did you make of what he said?
Well, I noticed he didn't mention the fact that he didn't jump with and die at the near post for Wolves' second goal, so he seemed to gloss over that one a little touch. Okay, he's not in the side for his defensive ability, but there was one or two glimpses I thought, but nothing that I felt merited. The manner Daniel was very positively talking him up, but that's probably a lot of that probably would be as he himself admitted. He was quite critical, quite openly critical, and the guy's attitude has obviously been spot on since that admonishment. And he's got his chance, and maybe it's just another little push to get him to continue as he feels going in the right direction. But I didn't see some stunning performance from Marley Watkins in an attacking sense at Wolves, but there is a player there. It's frustrating because there is a player. I know you've made the point there that maybe technically he fails to convince you, but I think there is a player. And you look at his show reel from Barnsley. We haven't seen the Marley Watkins who was scoring goals for fun at Barnsley. That tells me, as much as there's an issue with Marley Watkins and maybe adapting other coaching staff extracting the most from him at the minute, and I don't think they are. So if they could get that out of him, that type of attacking ability, we're talking about Hernandez. Well, Marley Watkins, look at the goals he was scoring at Barnsley. Straight down the middle, sheer pace, stripping the last man and coolly finishing. So if you can get that out of him, then him and Oliveira for me could be a very good pairing.
We saw a hell of a goal during pre-season as well, didn't we? Against Brighton.
Yeah. Just haven't seen it. So, and the majority of that, don't get me wrong, the majority of that falls on the lad himself, that he hasn't grasped his chance in the manner of Maddison, in the manner of Jamal Lewis, you would say. But he also needs to be helped to a degree as well. And, it felt like maybe Daniel gave him a few opportunities early on. It didn't quite work, and then they decided to go in a different direction, and Marley's sort of had to suck it up really until, as I say, coming back in against Wolves. But I think it would be strange to have given him a start against Wolves, praised him, and then not put him in the starting lineup tomorrow. So rather than what I think he should do, I think that's probably what he will do. I think it'll be Oliveira back in, Trebeni out, and Watkins alongside.
Duo U has a suggestion that there might be an issue with Sean Raggett coming in because he can't play left winger, whereas Tim Closer is obviously very good on the left wing. We've seen in the last few games.
Fair point. I mean, Closer in the three when they've been moving it around the back line. And Closer himself said, I think to us last week, that he's, under Farke's guidance, the one who has to break into midfield and add an extra man into midfield so that they can basically overload that area. So I haven't seen enough of Sean Raggett with the ball, but he doesn't strike me as a man who's going to be gliding into the centre of the park. So yeah, and again, you wouldn't say Hanley or Zimmerman fulfil that role. So it all comes back to the same thing. Farke's got some interesting dilemmas tomorrow in terms of A, the personnel, and B, the formation, because without Closer, you would fear the tendency would be then that basically they try and bypass midfield and just go long, and that just isn't Norwich's game.
That kind of taps into why Farke keeps suggesting that Alex Tettey is an option at centre back, I suppose, where he slips in at the the middle of the three, and then it's probably no issue when Norwich have the ball and they can move it forward. A little bit more of an issue when you're looking at them being a back line, effectively.
Particularly again, not trying to downplay the threat Bolton offer, but you would imagine that it will be solid, frustrate, set pieces is where they're going to feel they can hurt Norwich most. And I wouldn't want Alex Tettey defending set pieces for me. I'd rather have Raggett in that respect. Has Alex Tettey played in the defensive three? I can't remember. I don't recall a game.
No, not.
So I'm not quite sure. where that one's coming from, really. Not saying you couldn't do it, but again, to me, that's a square peg in a round hole.
We love those. A few people asking about Dennis, and I know you've mentioned Dennis Shrabini and the fact that you feel he will drop out. Mark Waters says, I'd like to see Shrabini given another start personally. Good opportunity for the home fans to get a feel for him. I think Daniel was really honest about it, actually. He said he was solid at Wolves, but he looked nervous at the start, and you couldn't really expect maybe him to deliver much more than that. And actually, a nice little line that he said, Nelson came on and finished his good work, which was quite generous. But I think Daniel knows what he's got to work with there, and I guess it's going to take time, isn't it?
Well, I thought it was interesting you put the point to him, can those two play together? If the top end of the pitch in Farke's view now is one, i.e. Maddison, and then two ahead, if those two are going to be more central type of players, then could it work? I think if Shrabini is a more physical, will play right up, out and out on the last man and is good aerially, and we know Oliveira likes to run in behind, and we saw, for me, Oliveira is a better player when he's facing goal and he's got space to attack. That's how he scored against Wolves. That's Barnsley. I remember last season we were talking about Barnsley here with Marley Watkins. He scored a thunderous goal when he's facing the goal. When he's got to come back towards the play and he's got a centre back for company and the ball's played up around him, 7, 8, 9, 10 times out of 10 he loses that challenge. That isn't his game. He needs, for me, to be facing up. Now, if you could see a scenario where Shrabini's flicking it on and he's running in behind, but as I say, that's not really how Norwich like to build the play. So Farke didn't rule it out, but I got the sense that it probably would be more one or the other rather than the two of them paired in tandem.
Yeah, certainly from the start, I still can't see him doing that. But it would mean at least maybe we'd see a striker in the box. I'm trying to think of the amount of times Nelson Oliveira has scored a goal with his head from 12 yards. It's just so infrequent, isn't it? And that does make life difficult when you want to see them cross the ball and maybe mix it up a little bit more. What else have we got here? Teresa Hagenbotham. Here's the one. I really do think we can still make the playoffs. Now, I'm just holding back from ruling it out, but I do think they need to probably win like the next 5 games to really stand a chance. So that's where they are, and they are. There is a run of fixtures where that is possible, but that's a tall order. How do you sit on it, Pad?
Well, what is it now? 8 points. Yeah. And of that run you're alluding to, I don't think they're playing many of the teams who are in where they are now and the top and the 6th place team. It's not that group of teams, is it? So it's not a case of Norwich get the points and then deprive the team above them, hence they close the gap or hopefully go above them. So a lot of things would have to fall into place over and above Norwich going on a really, really good winning run of games, which they're capable of doing quite clearly, certainly if they can find an attacking edge to their play more than they are at the minute. But that's only one part of the equation. If we're talking Norwich in the top 6, a lot of other moving parts would need to fall for them, and I don't see it at this stage with the games running out. But for me, it's all about finishing on a positive note and then bouncing into next season, having navigated obviously another testing transfer window. But what you wouldn't want now is that there's a lot of positivity around the place and it tails off and they end up 11th or 12th, because that would feel like a missed opportunity, I think.
Stephen Taylor, Oliveira should take lessons from Zimmerman in heading. It was a lovely goal that Christoph scored, of course, on Wednesday, his first for the club. You can hear plenty from him over at the PinkUn YouTube channel, plus lots from Daniel Farke, including him talking about Farke time as opposed to Fergie time. It's a nice clip. You can see that on the YouTube channel and, of course, pinkun.com. A couple of questions here on Marcus Edwards. Neil Austin, do you expect Edwards to feature in the squad? Surely got to see him soon, or what's the point? Still calling himself Michael Bailey's beard. Is Marcus Edwards a bad apple?
Is that not you, man?
It's officially not me, because he's posting while I'm on here, so that's proof. I'd love to know who it is, though. Marcus Edwards, you did ask him, didn't you, Daniel?
About him and Wes.
Yeah. And the answer started off about both of them, but didn't really get much more on Marcus, I guess. Well,
not a great deal more to add. The guy's training, fully available. Will he be in the 18? Don't see it for tomorrow. I think that's obviously. Farke's already come out and framed what that was, and that's a shot to nothing. Financially it made sense, and in terms of what they were acquiring in terms of a football player, if he hit the ground running and he came in, then he could have been capable of influencing games. If it doesn't work, then really Norwich don't lose out. The lad goes back to Tottenham and has to take a different route into the professional sort of first team game, as it were. So I don't see that changing anytime soon, really, which is a shame for the lad. But ultimately, where would we accommodate him in a Norwich 11 at the minute? Who's going to dip out to play him?
I mean, so we had the same conversation about Wes, haven't we? And Wes is an overseas player when you consider the pressure that Norwich have got on that as well. So it's almost harder for Wes to get in. I mean,
Farke, today I know he was asked about it after the Wolves game, but again today he said he will get games between now and the end of the season. So that's a direct quote from Farke. So we'll see whether he'll be in and around it tomorrow. Possibly, maybe might make the bench. If Leitner and Vrancic pull up overnight, not quite ready for selection, then I could see Wes coming back in. But I think in terms of the bigger picture, the writing's clearly on the wall there. I don't think he's going to be in a Norwich shirt next season. So it's quite understandable that Farke is now, as much as he'll continue to focus on the games remaining this season, he's obviously planning for next season. If Wes isn't part of that, then it's understandable. You're not going to promote his cause over, whoever, Hernandez, Murphy, Shrabeni, Oliveira, all these type of attacking players. So that's sad on a personal level, given the service the man's given, but time moves on.
Time does move on. I think he said it in midweek. What did he say today? He'd love to have worked with Wes Hulan when he was 26. Which I suppose probably doesn't make Wes feel particularly good, but it's a nice little quote anyway. Barry Newman, I want to see Norwich take the game to Bolton and stretch their defence. 2 up front, 3-4-1-2. Why can't Oliveira win headers when Gunny launches the ball forward? He's a tall lad, seems to jump like a Teletubby. La la. Smiley face. So that's all right. Smiley face. That's no problem, Barry. But it was interesting listening to Daniel talk about the game, because effectively he's asking for the opposite, isn't he? He wants people to be patient. He knows that he obviously likes this idea that they kind of grind teams down effectively, which is where the late goals possibly come from. He sees, and I guess it's going to be the same again. And interesting again, him talking about the balance of protecting the counter-attack as much as creating what they can going forward too.
I think the reality is tomorrow a difficult task will be made extremely difficult if they knock off defensively at a set piece or whatever, or commit too many men forward early on. And if Bolton get their noses in front, then it's going to be very difficult, because they are in not quite a desperate situation. They had a good win midweek and they've got a 3 or 4 point gap, but they will know they need to pick up points to make sure they don't get pulled back into it, and that's their objective for the rest of the season. But as we said to him today, last 3 games Norwich played, the derby at home to a lesser extent, but certainly the 2 away games, no pressure on Norwich, no expectation really on Norwich. Completely flips tomorrow. The expectation is on Norwich and the pressure is on Norwich, because Bolton you look at the stats, Bolton have got the poorest away record in the Championship. So this isn't a team who should come to Carrow Road and get any result, but that's not to say it'll be an easy assignment. So I think, Farke used the phrase patience for the supporters tomorrow, patience for his players. It'd be lovely if they did get 2 or 3 goals in front in the first half, and then you can almost relax and everybody can enjoy themselves. So I don't think Bolton would have enough attacking wise to pull that sort of deficit back, but I think everything we've seen from Farke's Norwich tells you it's going to be late and it's going to be more attritional again, I'm afraid.
Indeed. Well, that's always good fun to watch, isn't it?
That's something to look forward to, yeah.
There you go, that's a preview for you. Taking in that game will be the Aviva Young Journalist competition winners, Mason and Gracie, who got to meet at Colney today. They enjoyed themselves. We've got a picture with Christoph Zimmermann and with Rob Butler as well. But, you can't have everything. So that's good. They will be the game on tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get to speak to them for the PinkUn podcast and the PinkUn Show on Wednesday. I think there's only one thing left to ask you, Pad, which is which numbers will be going in your prediction in the paper tomorrow. Have you figured it out yet?
Irrespective, I wouldn't pay any store by those. My record
a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Yeah. Don't I know it? As I'm told frequently, you've got it wrong again. But you can't think of anything other than a home win, I think. But I don't. I'd love them to serve up a 4-5 goal, burst of attacking flair, but I think it'd be more one goal, the odd goal in 3, 2-1, something like that.
Well, we'll take it. I'm sure we'd all take a victory. And don't forget, you can follow all that at PinkUn.com throughout the day tomorrow, all the build-up, all the live coverage, and then, of course, all the fallout reaction and analysis thereafter across the entirety of the weekend. Neil Austin, I can see he's popped in a little 3-1 prediction there.
Take that.
Take that very much so. Thank you very much, Pad.
Cheers,
thanks, everyone, for getting in touch. We're much appreciated. We will, of course, see you tomorrow during the game. Until then, goodbye.